My brother raised his champagne glass in the middle of his rehearsal dinner and called me the lesson. Not his sister, not Leah. The lesson. He said it with a smile so polished that half the room thought it was affection, and the other half was too well-mannered to understand it was cruelty. My sister taught me something important, Caleb said, one hand resting on his fiancée's chair. She taught me what happens when you live your whole life afraid. Afraid to dream bigger. Afraid to take risks. Afraid to become more than the person who fixes everyone else's problems. A few people laughed softly. My mother pressed a napkin to the corner of her eye. My father stared down at his untouched steak, and I stood near the side wall of the Magnolia Room in the same black dress my mother had said was a little severe for a family celebration, holding a navy folder against my chest. Caleb smiled at me like he had already won. Then he turned back to the room. So tonight I want to thank Leah. Because sometimes the people who doubt you become the lesson that pushes you into your destiny. The room clapped. His fiancée's father clapped. My mother clapped. Even my father, after a long, painful second, lifted his hands and tapped his palms together twice. Caleb lowered his glass and looked right at me. He expected me to stand there quietly. He expected me to swallow it. That had been my role in our family for 34 years. But that night I had not come to be the lesson. I had come to teach one. So when Caleb announced that he and Harper would be moving into the family house after the wedding, the house he claimed he had restored with his own 2 hands and vision, I walked to the front of the room. I set the navy folder on the table beside the champagne glasses. The sound was quiet, but Caleb's smile disappeared before anyone else understood why. I was 9 years old the first time I realized my family had 2 versions of love. One version was for Caleb. It was loud, proud, forgiving, expensive. It showed up in new cleats, private pitching coaches, framed certificates, second chances, and speeches about potential. The other version was for me. It was quiet, practical, useful. It showed up as responsibilities no child should have, praise that sounded like chores, and the sentence my mother used so often it became part of the wallpaper of my childhood. Leah understands. Caleb forgot his homework. Leah understands. Caleb broke the garage window playing baseball after Dad told him not to. Leah understands. Caleb needed money for a school trip. Leah understands why we can't afford art camp this summer. We grew up in Franklin, Tennessee in a blue-gray house at the end of a cul-de-sac, lined with crepe myrtles and mailboxes shaped like little brick houses. My mother loved that house like it had personally rescued her from humiliation. She planted hydrangeas under the front windows, polished the brass door knocker before company came over, and told everyone at church that God had blessed us with a home full of history. There was not much history, honestly. The house had been built in the late 80s by a contractor who apparently believed corners were optional and plumbing was a suggestion. But to my mother it was proof. Proof that she had married well enough. Proof that her children had a good life. Proof that whatever happened behind closed doors could be covered with a wreath and a lemon pound cake. My father sold appliances at a family-owned store downtown. He was good at it because he had the kind of face people trusted. He could explain the difference between 2 washing machines for 20 minutes without making anyone feel stupid. My mother worked part-time at a dentist's office, answered phones, scheduled cleanings, and remembered everyone's children's names. We were not poor. That was what made the instability so confusing. There was always food in the fridge, but there were also late notices tucked under the mail tray. There were Christmas presents under the tree, but my mother sometimes returned 2 of mine in January. There were vacations Caleb talked about for years, but I remember my father sitting at the kitchen table afterward rubbing his temples while my mother whispered, "We'll catch up next month." Next month was the most common lie in our house. Caleb never noticed. Or maybe he noticed and learned early that noticing was my job. My brother was 2 years older than me and somehow younger forever. He had sandy blonde hair, easy dimples, and the natural confidence of someone who had never been allowed to feel the full weight of what he broke. Adults loved him. Teachers called him charismatic. Coaches called him a leader. My mother called him our bright light. I was our steady one. For years I thought steady was a compliment. Then I realized steady meant they could pile more on top of me without asking whether I was cracking. When Caleb got into trouble, my parents talked about pressure. When I got overwhelmed, they talked about attitude. When Caleb came home with a dent in the car, my father said, "Boys make mistakes." When I cried because I had spent 3 hours helping my mother organize bills instead of studying for a chemistry test, she said, "Leah, everybody has stress. Don't be dramatic. I learned to stop crying in front of them. I learned to become very good at being useful. By 12, I knew which drawer held the insurance cards. By 14, I could write checks because my mother said her handwriting looked shaky when she was tired. By 16, I had a part-time job at a pharmacy and knew more about prescription copays than any teenager should. By 17, I was the one who noticed that the property tax bill had been sitting unopened for 3 weeks. "Mom," I said, standing in the kitchen with the envelope in my hand, "this says past due." My mother was making a casserole for a church family whose father had lost his job. She did not look up. "Put it on the counter, honey. It says there's a penalty. Your father will handle it. He's at work. Then he'll handle it when he gets home. He said that last week." She turned then slowly the wooden spoon in her hand. "Leah, I cannot do everything." The strange thing was, I knew she was right. She could not do everything. But somehow, instead of asking why the adults had made life so fragile, I became ashamed for adding one more worry to the pile. I put the bill on the counter. Then later that night, when my parents were arguing quietly in their bedroom, and Caleb was playing video games with his friends, I opened my laptop and searched what happens if you pay property taxes late in Williamson County. That was the beginning of my education. Not school, not college, my real education. The education of overdue notices, minimum payments, insurance deductibles, grace periods, payment plans, and the terrible silence that fills a house when nobody wants to say the word debt. Caleb's education was different. He learned that charm could delay consequences. He learned that if he smiled and said he had a plan, people would give him time. He learned that if a woman looked worried, he could call her negative. He learned that if I objected, my mother would say, "Don't start." That phrase became a fence around my life. Don't start. Don't make this about you. Don't embarrass your brother. Don't upset your father. Don't bring this up at dinner. Don't ruin the moment. There were so many moments I was not allowed to ruin that eventually my whole life became a storage room for other people's peace. I almost escaped once. When I was 18, I got accepted into a nursing program in Chattanooga. It was not my dream because dreams had never been encouraged in me long enough to take shape. But it was something. It was mine. I imagined a dorm room with a desk by the window. I imagined walking across campus with books pressed to my chest. I imagined learning how to help people in ways that had boundaries, paychecks, and official hours. My parents said they were proud. For exactly 2 days. Then Caleb lost his scholarship. Not entirely, just enough to create panic. He had skipped classes, missed required athletic meetings, and failed a course he told my parents was basically impossible unless the professor liked you. My father shouted. My mother cried. Caleb sat at the kitchen table looking devastated in the way people look when they are sorry they got caught before they are sorry they did it. The next morning, my mother came into my room and sat on the edge of my bed. I remember the sunlight on her face. I remember the smell of her coffee. I remember knowing before she spoke that something was about to be taken from me. "Honey," she said softly, "we need to talk about timing." Timing. That was how my future got postponed. Not canceled. Never canceled. Just delayed. Just adjusted. Just 1 semester. Just until Caleb got stable. Just until Dad's commission picked back up. Just until we caught up. I enrolled in community college instead and took classes online. Caleb stayed at his school. At Christmas, my mother hung his Dean's List certificate on the fridge. He had taken 2 easy electives and 1 pass-fail class. I got straight A's while working 30 hours a week. My mother said, "That's wonderful, honey," without looking up from the casserole she was making for Caleb's coach. I told myself it did not matter. That was another lie I practiced until it sounded like maturity. Years passed that way. Caleb started and abandoned dreams the way some people change phone cases. Real estate, personal training, a podcast about masculine leadership, a short-lived lawn care company that owned no equipment, a luxury watch resale page that somehow lost money despite never having inventory. Each failure came home wrapped in language that made it sound temporary. Pivot, rebrand, market shift, bad partner, wrong timing. My parents ate those words like communion. I worked. That was my pivot. I worked at the pharmacy then, at a clinic then, in hospital billing. I learned diagnosis codes, insurance denials, prior authorizations, charity care applications, and the quiet despair of people who had done everything right and still could not afford to be sick. I was good at the work because I understood fear when it came in envelopes. I understood how a bill could sit unopened on a counter because the person who received it did not have the emotional strength to see the number. I understood shame. I understood how often people confuse help with judgment. At 26, I was accepted into nursing school again. This time I had saved enough for the first year. I had a plan. A real one. Then my father fell in the garage. It was a stupid accident which made it worse. A wet patch near the old refrigerator. 1 foot sliding. One terrible crack of bone and pride. He needed surgery. Then physical therapy. Then time off work that turned into reduced hours that turned into early retirement no one had prepared for. My mother called me from the hospital hallway. "Leah." "I'm scared," she whispered. I left work and drove straight there. Caleb called 3 hours later. He was in Atlanta at a business development weekend. He said he would come if it was really serious. My mother told him not to worry. Then she handed me a folder of hospital paperwork. "You understand this stuff," she said. I did. So I handled it. I handled the insurance calls. I handled the payment plan. I handled the short-term disability forms. I handled the pharmacy pickups. I handled the awkward conversation with the mortgage company when my parents missed a payment. Then another. Then almost another. Nursing school slipped away again. Not with a dramatic fight, just quietly. Like a cup pushed farther and farther across a table until it falls off the edge, and everyone pretends gravity did it. My mother said, "We just need you for a little while." I was old enough by then to know what a little while meant in our family. It meant until Caleb was ready, until my father was better, until my mother stopped panicking, until the roof stopped leaking, until the bank stopped calling, until everyone who needed me had finished needing me, which is to say never. The house became my second job. First the roof. A storm tore shingles from the backside, and water leaked through the ceiling above the laundry room. My mother put a bucket under it and said we can wait until spring. The contractor said if they waited until spring, mold would join the family. I paid the deposit. Then the water heater failed. Then the porch railing came loose. Then the county taxes were late enough to trigger letters in red ink. Then my father's prescriptions changed and the copays doubled. Then the homeowner's insurance threatened non-renewal unless the roof and railing were repaired. Everything was connected. That was what people who talk about just one bill never understand. One unpaid thing becomes 3. 3 becomes a threat. A threat becomes a crisis. And a crisis becomes a daughter standing in a bank lobby on her lunch break, transferring money she had saved for school into an account that did not have her name on the deed. The first time I asked my parents to sign something acknowledging what I was paying, my mother cried like I had accused her of stealing. "How can you put paperwork between families?" she asked. I almost apologized. Then Mr. Albright cleared his throat. He was sitting at the kitchen table with us, beige sweater, silver hair, reading glasses low on his nose. Mr. Albright had gone to our church for 25 years. He had retired from accounting and helped half the congregation with taxes, budgets, and the kind of financial messes people described as complicated when they meant humiliating. He had offered to review my parents' situation after my mother mentioned prayerfully in front of the wrong person that the enemy was attacking our finances. The enemy, as it turned out, was a decade of denial and one adult son with unlimited access to sympathy. Mr. Albright looked at my mother kindly but firmly. "Carol," he said, "paperwork does not weaken trust. It tells the truth, so trust does not have to carry everything alone." My father signed first. His hands shook with anger or shame, maybe both. My mother signed next, tears running down her face. The document was simple. If I brought the mortgage current, paid the tax arrears, and funded necessary repairs to preserve the property, I would hold a documented financial interest in the home until repayment or sale. No threats, no lawsuit, no courtroom, just truth on paper. My parents signed because they needed me. They signed because Caleb was not there. They signed because deep down, everyone knew that my responsibility had become too expensive to keep pretending it was just kindness. For a while after that, things became almost peaceful. Not fair. Never fair. But stable. The roof stopped leaking. The insurance renewed. My father learned to walk without the cane. My mother started sleeping again. Caleb visited twice that year. Once for Thanksgiving, where he carved the turkey badly and received compliments for stepping up. Once at Christmas, where he gave my parents a framed photo of the house he had taken from the sidewalk, edited with warm filters, and posted online with the caption, "Legacy isn't inherited, it's restored." My mother loved that post. She showed it to women at church. "That boy has such a heart for home," she said. I stood beside her holding a tray of deviled eggs I had paid for in the house I had kept from default under the roof I had funded, and said nothing. That was the season Caleb discovered legacy. Not actual legacy. Not work, not sacrifice, not duty, the aesthetic of legacy. He started posting porch pictures, old family photos, the hallway mirror, the dining room table, a slow-motion video of himself sanding one section of the porch rail after I had already paid a contractor to replace the damaged portion. He called the house the Hartley House as if naming it made it an estate. He wrote captions about returning to your roots, masculine responsibility, rebuilding what matters, and generational stewardship. People loved it. Women from church commented with heart emojis. My mother shared every post. My father did not understand social media, but seemed proud whenever someone mentioned it at Sunday service. I asked Caleb once to stop implying he was paying for renovations. We were standing in the driveway after Easter lunch. He wore sunglasses and leaned against his car like he was waiting for someone to photograph him. I never said I paid for everything, he said. You let people think it. He smiled. Leah, perception is part of leadership. No, Caleb. Accuracy is part of character. His smile disappeared. That's your problem. What is, you think being right matters more than being inspiring? I remember staring at him, genuinely stunned by the elegance of his selfishness. He could turn any correction into a flaw in the person correcting him. That was his real talent. Not sales, not branding, not leadership. Rehearsal. He could make his mess your attitude. He could make his lie your bitterness. He could make your exhaustion proof that you were small. Then Harper Caldwell entered his life and the performance became dangerous. Harper came from money, but not the loud kind. Her family owned Caldwell and Company, a chain of custom home stores across Tennessee, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Not huge enough to be famous, but big enough that everyone in Franklin knew the name. Her father, Bennett Caldwell, had that calm Southern businessman presence that made people sit straighter. Her mother, Elise, dressed like every brunch might be photographed. Harper was beautiful in a soft, controlled way with honey blonde hair, pearl earrings, and a voice that made every sentence sound carefully considered. I met her at my parents' house on a Sunday in June. My mother had spent 3 days preparing. She made chicken salad and croissants, sweet tea with mint lemon bars, and a strawberry cake that leaned slightly to one side because her hands shook when she frosted it. Caleb arrived with Harper in a linen shirt and loafers he definitely could not afford. He walked her through the house like a tour guide. This hallway used to be darker, he said. I opened it up. He had changed one light bulb. The kitchen was a major project, he continued. I wanted to preserve warmth, but give it a more elevated feeling. I looked at the kitchen floor. Luxury vinyl plank. Paid from my savings account. Installed by 2 contractors named Rick and Manny, while Caleb was in Miami posting beach quotes about discipline. Harper touched the countertop. It's beautiful. Caleb looked at me, just briefly, a warning. I smiled politely because my mother was watching me with desperate eyes. After lunch, Harper helped me carry plates into the kitchen. I hope this isn't strange to say, she said, lowering her voice, but Caleb talks about you a lot. I almost dropped a fork. He does, she nodded. He says you're the practical one, that you kept everyone grounded while he dreamed bigger. There it was again. The family mythology now exported. That sounds like him, I said. Harper smiled uncertainly. I admire that. Being grounded, I mean. I looked at her, then really looked. She was not cruel. She was not stupid. She was a woman being handed a story by a charming man and trying to believe it. I wanted to warn her. Instead, my mother appeared behind us and said brightly, Harper, wait until you see the guest room. Caleb wants to turn into a nursery someday. Someday. That word moved through the kitchen like a match near gasoline. I turned. My mother would not meet my eyes. Caleb and Harper were engaged 4 months later. The proposal happened on my parents' porch at sunset. Of course it did. A photographer hid behind the hydrangeas. Candles lined the steps. My mother cried. My father wore a sports coat. Caleb knelt in front of the door I had paid to replace after the old frame warped from water damage. The photos went viral in the small way local rich people go viral. Franklin couple gets engaged at restored family home. Caleb tagged Caldwell and Company. Harper's mother commented, a legacy love story. I stared at the post during my lunch break in the hospital cafeteria, a plastic fork in one hand and a stack of denied claims waiting on my desk upstairs. Legacy love story. I closed the app. That evening my mother called. Wasn't it beautiful? Yes, I said. You sound tired. I am tired. Well, try to be happy for your brother. This is a big moment for him. There it was. My exhaustion was bad manners. His performance was holy. Wedding planning began immediately and somehow I became useful again. Not maid of honor, not bridesmaid, Harper asked her college friends for that. I became the person my mother called when deposits confused her, when rehearsal dinner contracts needed reviewing, when my father could not understand why the hotel required a final count 10 days early. Leah understands these things, my mother told Harper. Harper thanked me often. Caleb did not. He began referring to the house as our place after the wedding. At first I thought he meant temporarily. Then I heard the full plan by accident. It was late January, 3 months before the wedding. I had stopped by my parents' house after work to drop off a prescription refill for my father and a grocery order, because my mother said she had been too dizzy to drive. I let myself in through the side door. Voices came from the dining room. Caleb, my mother, my father, and someone on speakerphone I later realized was Harper's father. Caleb was saying, "The house gives us stability. Harper and I can live there while I scale Monroe and Stone. Eventually, we can use it as our flagship restoration story." Monroe and Stone was Caleb's newest business, a heritage home consulting brand. He had no license, no contractors, no employees, and no completed projects except the illusion of our parents' house. Bennett Caldwell's voice came through the speaker. "And your parents are comfortable transferring the property after the wedding." My father murmured something I could not hear. My mother said, "We want Caleb and Harper to have a strong start." My hand tightened around the pharmacy bag. Bennett said, "That is generous." Caleb laughed softly. "It's family. This is what legacy looks like." I stood in the hallway, unable to move. Transferring the property. The house. The house with my money and the roof. The floors, the taxes, the bank arrears, the insurance rescue, the repairs, the years of sacrifice. The house my parents had signed an agreement over. The house Caleb had turned into a social media prop. They were giving it to him as a wedding gift. I walked into the dining room. Everyone looked up. My mother's face changed first. "Guilt has a recognizable shape if you have spent your life studying it." "Leah," she said, "we didn't hear you come in." "I can tell." Caleb ended the call. Too quickly. That told me everything. My father rubbed his forehead. "It's not what it sounded like. It sounded like you're giving Caleb the house." My mother stood. "Honey, let's not do this in that tone." "What tone should I use?" Leah, my father warned. Caleb leaned back in his chair. "Here we go," his face said. My mother clasped her hands in front of her. "We were going to talk to you." When after the deed was signed, Caleb laughed. "It's not a deed ceremony, Leah." I looked at him. "You don't even know what you're talking about." His eyes hardened. My mother gasped. "Do not speak to your brother like that." I turned to her. "Are you giving him the house?" Silence. The kind that answers. My father sighed. "Your mother and I think it makes sense." "Why?" "Because Caleb and Harper are starting a family." "I'm family." My mother flinched. "That is not what we mean." "It's exactly what you mean." Caleb stood, then palms out, voice gentle. That was always when he was most dangerous. "Leah, no one is trying to hurt you, but you have your life." I almost laughed. "My life. You've always wanted independence. I wanted nursing school." His face tightened. "That was years ago." "Yes. Because every time I tried to go, this family had an emergency." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "There it is," she whispered. "The list. The list is called reality." Caleb shook his head. "This is why Mom and Dad worry about you. You keep score." I felt something inside me go very still, not numb, clear. I paid the score. My father looked away. My mother sat down slowly. Caleb looked at me with the annoyed pity he used when he wanted everyone to think I was unstable. "You helped because family helps. I helped because the house was almost lost. And now it isn't. Because of me." The room went silent. It was the first time I had said it plainly. Not hinted, not joked, not swallowed. Because of me. My mother's face hardened through her tears. "Do you want us to thank you forever?" "No," I said. "I want you not to give my sacrifice to Caleb and call it his future." Caleb's expression changed. There was the brother I knew beneath the charm. Cold. Resentful. "You know what your problem is," he said. My father said, "Caleb." "No, Dad. She needs to hear it." He looked at me. "You built your whole identity around being necessary. And now that Mom and Dad don't need you in the same way, you're panicking." I stared at him. He stepped closer. "You act like you're the responsible one, but really you're afraid. Afraid to want anything. Afraid to fail. Afraid to be seen. So you hide behind bills and call it virtue." My mother was crying silently now. My father said nothing. Caleb softened his voice. "You're the lesson, Leah. I mean that. You show me every day what happens when someone chooses fear over faith." I remember every detail of that moment. The prescription bag on the table. The hum of the refrigerator, the smell of lemon cleaner, the way my father's hand trembled but did not rise in my defense, the way my mother cried for Caleb's pain while he cut me open. I picked up my purse. When were you planning to announce this? My mother blinked. What? The house. When were you planning to announce it? Caleb smiled. He thought he had pushed me back into calm. At the rehearsal dinner, he said, Bennett thought it would be meaningful. A joining of families. A joining of assets, I said. His jaw tightened. Try not to ruin this. I looked at my parents. Neither of them corrected him. That was the moment something old in me finally died. Not love. Love is stubborn. Not grief. Grief had just begun. What died was the belief that if I explained my pain clearly enough, they would choose me. I nodded once. I won't ruin anything, I said. Then I left. I drove to the hospital parking garage, even though my shift had ended hours earlier. It was the only place I could think. The garage smelled like concrete rainwater and exhaust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere below, an ambulance reversed with 3 sharp beeps. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel. Then I opened the glove compartment. Inside was a small stack of receipts I had been meaning to file. Roofing deposit, county taxes, pharmacy copays, insurance premium, my life in thermal paper. I took them out one by one. For years I had saved proof because I was afraid of being unfair. That was the strange thing. Even in my anger, I had worried about exaggerating. I had worried that maybe I was remembering too harshly. Maybe I had offered more than they had asked. Maybe I had made myself into a martyr. Maybe family really did not keep track. But receipts do not care about family mythology. Bank statements do not flatter golden sons. Texts do not forget. The next morning I called Mr. Albright. He answered with, I wondered when you would. I closed my eyes. You knew, I suspected. Why didn't you say anything? Because people rarely hear warnings before they are ready to stop participating in the problem. That sounded exactly like him. Calm, gentle, annoyingly correct. I told him everything. The transfer, the rehearsal dinner announcement, the way Caleb had been using the house to impress the Caldwells, the business, the posts, the phrase, the lesson. Mr. Albright was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Bring every document. A while of it. So I did. The next 3 weeks became the most organized breakdown of my life. Every night after work, I sat at my kitchen table and built the Navy folder. Section 1. Mortgage rescue. Bank letters. Payment confirmations. A timeline showing the months my parents fell behind and the exact dates I covered shortages. Section 2. Taxes and insurance. County receipts. Penalty notices. Insurance non-renewal warning. Renewal confirmation after repairs. Section 3. Repairs. Roofing invoice. Water heater invoice. Porch railing invoice. Kitchen floor invoice. Contractor emails. Photos before and after. Section 4. Medical and household support. Pharmacy payments. Hospital payment plan confirmations. Utility bills. Grocery transfers. Section 5. Caleb's claims. Screenshots. So many screenshots. Caleb on the porch with a caption about restoring what my grandfather built, even though our grandfather had never lived in that house. Caleb standing in the kitchen with blood, sweat, and faith posted the week I paid the flooring installer. Caleb telling a commenter that real men build homes before they build families. Caleb tagging Caldwell and company in posts about design leadership. Caleb's Monroe and Stone pitch deck, which I found because he had accidentally sent it to my email once asking me to clean up the numbers. In the deck, the Hartley house was listed as Project 1 founder-led family restoration. Founder-led. The founder had not paid the roofer. The founder had not sat on hold with the bank for 94 minutes. The founder had not cried in a Kroger parking lot because the property tax payment meant she could not enroll in spring classes. Section 6 was the agreement. The signed, notarized document my parents had treated like a temporary embarrassment. Mr. Albright reviewed it at his dining room table, while his wife brought us coffee and pretended not to listen. This is valid, he said. I don't want to sue them. I did not say sue. I don't want a courtroom. You likely do not need one. What do I need? He tapped the folder. You need the truth in a room where lies are about to become decisions. I swallowed. That sounds dramatic. Sometimes accuracy feels dramatic to people who benefit from confusion. He helped me prepare a one-page summary. Plain language. No insults. No emotional adjectives. Just facts. Outstanding repayment amount. Property interest. Transfer complications. Misrepresentations related to renovation funding. Risk to any party relying on Caleb's claims. At the bottom, Mr. Albright wrote one sentence and underlined it. A gift cannot be honestly given when the cost has been hidden from the person who paid it. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It felt like someone had opened a window in a room I had been suffocating in since childhood. During those weeks, my family mistook my quiet for surrender. My mother texted me photos of rehearsal dinner centerpieces, cream roses or white tulips. I replied, either is fine. Caleb texted, need you to come by Saturday and clear your old boxes from the guest room. Harper wants to use it as an office after we move in. I replied, I'm not available. He responded, don't make this weird. I did not answer. My father called once. I almost let it go to voicemail, but old habits are hard to kill. Hey, Dad. He sounded tired. Your mother says you've been distant. I've been working. You know this thing with the house isn't meant to hurt you. Then what is it meant to do? He sighed. Help your brother. There it was. Honest, at least. At my expense. No one sees it that way. I do. A pause. Then quietly, Leah Caleb needs a win. I closed my eyes. My brother needed a win. I had needed tuition. I had needed sleep. I had needed someone to tell me I was more than useful. But Caleb needed a win. Dad, I said, why does his need always become my loss? He did not answer. Maybe he could not. Maybe he had never allowed himself to ask the question. The rehearsal dinner fell on a Friday in April. It rained that afternoon. Not hard, just enough to make the streets shine, and the air smell like wet brick and expensive perfume when I stepped out of my car in front of the Magnolia Room. The venue was attached to a restored hotel in downtown Franklin, where everything looked old but cost more because of it. Gas lanterns flickered near the entrance. Valet attendants opened doors for guests in navy suits and silk dresses. Inside the room glowed cream walls, gold mirrors, tall candles, white flowers in low bowls, a pianist playing something soft enough to make money feel tasteful. Harper's family had paid for all of it. My mother looked almost frightened by the elegance which made her louder. She laughed too brightly, complimented too much, touched Harper's mother's arm like they were already close. My father wore his good suit and a tie I had bought him for Father's Day 5 years earlier. Caleb looked born for the room. Navy suit, open smile, gold watch, one hand always near Harper's back. He moved through the guests like a candidate. I arrived alone, in black, with the navy folder. My mother saw it immediately. Her eyes dropped to it, then rose to my face. Leah, she whispered, as she pulled me aside near the coat room. Please tell me you did not bring paperwork tonight. I looked at her. Okay. She blinked. Okay, what? Okay, I won't tell you that. Her face went pale. This is not the time. That's what you always say. Because you always choose the worst moments. No, I said. You choose public moments to make private decisions, then ask me to protect you from the truth. She recoiled like I had slapped her. I should have felt guilty. I felt sad. That was different. She leaned closer. Your brother is happy. I know. Harper is happy. I know. Then let them have tonight. I looked across the room at Caleb laughing with Bennett Caldwell, one hand gesturing toward the ceiling, as if he owned even the light. He's planning to announce the house tonight. My mother pressed her lips together. Your father and I have made our decision. So have I. Her eyes filled. Leah, please, don't punish us. The old reflex rose. Comfort her. Soften. Explain. Make yourself smaller so she can breathe. Instead, I said, consequences are not punishment just because they arrive after you ignored the truth. Then I walked away. Dinner was beautiful. That almost made it worse. There were tiny crab cakes on white plates, a salad with sugared pecans and goat cheese, steak served with rosemary potatoes. Harper's mother gave a speech about love being the joining of stories. Bennett Caldwell welcomed Caleb into the family and spoke warmly about hard work, tradition, and building something that lasts. I wondered if he knew how dangerous those words were in a room built on fraud. My father spoke next. He thanked the Caldwells. He thanked God. He said Caleb had always had a vision beyond what the rest of us could see. He did not look at me when he said it. My mother followed. She cried through half her speech. She talked about Caleb as a little boy, how he used to run through the house with a blanket tied around his neck like a cape. Our dreamer, she said. People smiled. Then she said Harper was the answer to so many prayers. I wondered which prayers. The one where Caleb finally became someone else's responsibility. The one where marrying into money made all his failures look like preparation. The one where my parents could give him the house and call it a blessing instead of an escape. Then Caleb stood. The room warmed to him before he said a word. That was his gift. He smiled, waited for quiet, and placed one hand over his heart. I don't deserve any of this, he began. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was the first true sentence he had said all night. He thanked Harper. He called her his peace. He thanked her parents for believing in him as a builder, a husband, and a man of faith. He thanked my parents for raising him in a home where legacy mattered more than comfort. Then he turned toward me, and I knew. My stomach did not drop. My hands did not shake. I simply became very aware of the folder resting against my lap. And I want to thank my sister Leah. A few heads turned. Harper smiled at me kindly. My mother's face tightened. Caleb's smile sharpened. Leah and I are very different, he said. Anyone who knows us knows that. A ripple of polite laughter. She is careful, cautious, very good with details. She notices problems before anyone else even sees possibilities. More laughter. My father stared at the table. Caleb continued. For a long time I used to think she doubted me. And maybe she did. He looked directly at me. But I realized something. Sometimes God places people in your life to show you what you don't want to become. The room shifted slightly. Harper stopped smiling. My mother lifted her napkin. She taught me that fear can dress itself up as responsibility, Caleb said. That you can spend your whole life protecting yourself from risk and call it wisdom. He raised his glass. So thank you, Leah. Truly. You were the lesson I needed. Because seeing you live small made me brave enough to live big. Silence. Then awkward applause. Not everyone. Enough. My ears rang, but my mind stayed clear. Caleb turned back to the room, energized now. And that brings me to the surprise Harper and I have been waiting to share. After the wedding, we'll be moving into the Hartley family home. His voice thickened with false emotion. My parents have decided to pass the house on to us, and Harper and I plan to continue its restoration as the first official Monroe and Stone legacy home. Now people really clapped. Harper looked stunned, happy but stunned. That told me Caleb had not told her everything. Or maybe he had told her a prettier version. Bennett Caldwell stood and shook my father's hand. My mother cried. Caleb opened his arms slightly, receiving the room. That was when I stood. The applause faded unevenly. A chair scraped. My mother saw the folder in my hands and whispered no. I walked to the front of the room. Not fast. Not angry. Slow enough that no one could pretend I was hysterical. Caleb watched me approach with a smile that had begun to crack. Leah, he said into the microphone, trying to sound amused. You want to say something? Yes, the word carried. I set the navy folder on the table beside him. He glanced down. What is that? The part of the legacy you left out. The room went still. My father closed his eyes. My mother covered her mouth. Harper looked from me to Caleb. I opened the folder. The first page was not a document. It was a photograph. The house 3 years earlier. The real house. Blue tarp over the back roof. Rotting porch rail. Water stains spreading across the laundry room ceiling. Hydrangeas, untrimmed weeds in the walkway. A sagging gutter hanging like a broken arm. I held it up. This is the Hartley house before the restoration Caleb has been describing. Caleb laughed tightly. Leah, come on. I turned the page. This is the roofing invoice. $22,400. Paid from my account. No one moved. This is the county tax receipt from the year the house was weeks away from further collection action. Paid from my account. I turned another page. This is the insurance non-renewal warning. The policy was reinstated after repairs I funded. Another page. This is the water heater. This is the porch railing. This is the kitchen floor Caleb photographed for his business page. Caleb's face went red. Are you seriously itemizing family help at my rehearsal dinner? His tone was perfect. Wounded. Offended. A man attacked by pettiness. I looked at him. You called me the lesson in front of 80 people. I assumed we were discussing education. A murmur moved through the room. Harper's mouth parted slightly. Bennett Caldwell sat down slowly. I continued. For 6 years I paid mortgage shortages, medical copays, utilities, repairs, taxes, and insurance to keep that house from being lost. I did it while Caleb was in Atlanta, Miami, Nashville, or wherever his next version of himself happened to be. Caleb stepped closer. That is enough. No, I said. Enough was 3 years ago. My voice did not rise. That made people listen harder. I took out a packet of printed screenshots. These are Caleb's public posts claiming he restored the house. I placed them on the table. These are his Monroe and Stone pitch materials, listing the house as his founder-led restoration project. Bennett reached for the packet. Caleb snatched it first. Private business documents, he snapped. You sent them to me for editing. His nostrils flared. Harper stood. Caleb, What is she talking about? He turned to her, softening instantly. Harper, she's upset. My sister has a very complicated relationship with generosity. I almost smiled. There it was, the reversal. Even now, I reached into the folder and removed the final section. No, I have a complicated relationship with being erased. I handed one copy to Bennett Caldwell, one to Harper, one to my father. My mother did not reach for hers, so I placed it on the table in front of her. This is the home preservation agreement signed by my parents and notarized 3 years ago. It documents my financial interest in the property until repayment or sale. Harper looked down at the page. Her face changed as she read. Bennett's expression did not change at all, which somehow made him more frightening. Caleb stared at me. What the hell is that? The paperwork from when I saved the house. My mother sobbed once. Leah, please. I looked at her. Please what? Please keep pretending. Please let Caleb accept a house as a wedding gift when nobody has told Harper's family that the house is financially tied to me. Please let him use my payments as proof of his business credibility. Caleb pointed at me. She is jealous. The old accusation. The emergency exit of the golden child. She has always been jealous, he said to Harper. Of me. Of the way Mom and Dad believe in me. Of us. Of this life. Harper looked at him, then at the documents. She paid for the repairs. Caleb hesitated. That hesitation did more damage than any answer. Harper whispered Caleb. He reached for her hand. Baby families help each other. Leah is making it sound transactional because that's how she sees the world. I said you made it transactional when you tried to transfer the asset and sell the story. Bennett Caldwell finally spoke. His voice was quiet. Caleb. Did you represent this property as an unencumbered family transfer in your business proposal? Caleb blinked. Well, I mean, not in those words. Bennett waited. The silence stretched. Caleb looked around the room, searching for rescue. My mother was crying. My father looked destroyed. Harper pulled her hand away. I watched him realize that charm had limits when documents entered the room. It's my family home, he said. No, I said. It is a house your family almost lost while you were branding yourself as the man restoring it. That landed. I saw it hit him, not because he felt guilt, because the room heard it. Caleb could survive hurting me. He had done it all his life. But being exposed in front of people whose respect he wanted was a different kind of wound. He leaned toward me, low enough that maybe only the front tables heard. You are trying to ruin my life. I looked at him. No, Caleb. I am refusing to keep funding the lie that yours matters more than mine. Harper sat down slowly. Her engagement ring flashed under the chandelier. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my father stood. It took effort. His back was still bad, especially when he was upset. He gripped the edge of the table. Leah, he said. I waited. Everyone waited. He swallowed. We should have told the truth. My mother made a broken sound. Caleb turned on him. Dad. But my father did not look at Caleb. He looked at me. We should have told the truth before tonight. It was not enough. Not nearly enough. But it was the first public crack in the wall my family had built around Caleb. My mother whispered, We didn't know it would become this. I turned to her. That has always been your excuse. You didn't know how much I paid. You didn't know how tired I was. You didn't know Caleb was lying. You didn't know the documents mattered. You didn't know until not knowing stopped protecting you. She cried harder. I wanted to comfort her. My body almost moved toward her from habit. Then I stopped. That was the victory nobody clapped for. I stayed where I was. Harper stood again. She was crying now, but quietly, not dramatically. She removed her engagement ring. Caleb's face went white. Harper, don't do this. She held the ring in her palm. You told me this house was your proof. It is. No, she said. It's hers. She placed the ring on the table. The sound was tiny. The room heard it anyway. Caleb reached for her, but Bennett stepped between them. Not aggressively. Just enough, Harper Caleb said, voice breaking. Baby, please. This is a misunderstanding. Harper looked at him with a sadness so complete it made even me ache. You let me admire you for work you didn't do. Caleb had no answer, so he turned back to me. Because men like him always return to the woman they are used to blaming. You happy now? I picked up the Navy folder. Number. And that was the truth. I was not happy. I was not triumphant. I was standing in a beautiful room watching my family collapse under the weight of facts I had carried alone for years. There was no joy in it. Only air. Only space. Only the strange aching relief of finally not being the container for everyone else's lies. I turned to the room. I am sorry this happened publicly, I said. But this announcement was public. These claims were public. The lie was becoming public property. I will not be silent so everyone else can feel comfortable believing it. I looked at Caleb. You called me the lesson. So learn. Then I walked out. No dramatic music. No applause. Just the soft click of my heels against the floor. The weight of the folder in my hand, and the sound of my mother saying my name behind me like she had only just remembered it belonged to a person. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sidewalk shone beneath the streetlights. People were laughing outside a bar down the block. A couple hurried under one umbrella. A valet jogged past me with keys in his hand. The world had not ended. That surprised me. For so long I had believed that telling the truth would destroy everything. But everything had already been damaged. The truth had simply turned on the lights. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car. Mom, Dad, Caleb, Mom again. A text from Caleb appeared on the screen. You are dead to this family. I stared at it for a moment. Then another message arrived from my mother. Please come back. We can fix this. I turned the phone off. For the first time in my life, their panic did not become my assignment. The wedding was postponed the next morning. By noon, everyone in our circle knew. Not the full truth, of course. Truth rarely travels whole. It arrived in fragments. Caleb and Harper had a fight. Leah made a scene. There was something about money. The house wasn't really Caleb's. Harper's father pulled the investment. Carol was devastated. Poor Tom. Poor Caleb. No one said poor Leah. Not at first. That was fine. I had stopped needing my pain to win a popularity contest. My mother left 7 voicemails the first day. The first one was crying. The second was confused. The third was angry. By the 4th, she was bargaining. By the 7th, she sounded small. Honey, she said, voice shaking. I don't know how we got here. I sat at my kitchen table and listened once. Then I deleted it. Not because I did not love her. Because I had spent too many years treating her helplessness as a command. Caleb sent messages for 3 days. Some angry, some cruel, some almost apologetic, though never quite. You had no right. You twisted everything. You always hated me. You think paperwork makes you better than family. Then finally, I needed this. That one stopped me. Not because it excused him. Because it was honest. He needed the house. He needed Harper's belief. He needed Bennett Caldwell's investment. He needed my parents' public blessing. He needed all of it because without borrowed proof, Caleb had nothing solid to stand on. I typed 3 words. Then build something. I did not send them. Some truths are not worth delivering to people committed to misunderstanding them. Harper called me 5 days after the rehearsal dinner. I almost did not answer. Then I did. Her voice was hoarse. Leah. Yes, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes. Of all the people who owed me apologies, Harper was not high on the list. You don't have to be. I do, she said. I believed him. And I think part of me liked believing him because the story was beautiful. I understood that more than she knew. Beautiful stories are dangerous when they make ugly facts feel rude. She continued. My father reviewed the proposal. Caleb used the house, the renovation, and the expected transfer as credibility for Monroe and Stone. Dad was going to fund a pilot project after the wedding. My stomach turned. How much? $200,000 to start. I sat down, not because I was shocked Caleb would do it, because I was shocked by how close he had come. Harper took a shaky breath. If you hadn't opened that folder, I would have married him believing he was something he isn't. I looked out my apartment window at the parking lot at the neighbor's truck, with one flat tire at the ordinary world continuing. I'm sorry it hurt you. It would have hurt more later, she said. That was true. Before we hung up, she said something I kept for a long time.
You were not cruel. You were clear.
Clear. I had been called many things in my life. Sensitive, dramatic, negative, practical, difficult, cold, jealous. But clear felt new. Clear felt clean. 2 weeks later, my parents asked to meet. I chose Mr. Albright's office at the church. Not their house. Not mine. Not a restaurant where my mother could perform sadness for strangers. Neutral ground. My father arrived first. He looked older than he had at the dinner. His suit jacket hung loose. His face had the gray softness of a man who had not slept well and had not yet decided whether he deserved rest. My mother came in behind him wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. She removed them slowly and looked at me like she was afraid I might disappear. For years I had mistaken being looked at with need for being seen. This was different. This time she looked afraid of what I knew. Mr. Albright sat at the end of the table with a legal pad. He was not there as a lawyer. He reminded everyone of that twice. He was there as a witness, a financial advisor, and the closest thing our family had to a neutral adult. My mother started crying before anyone spoke. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said. I waited. That sentence had always been where our conversations ended. She said she never meant to hurt me. I comforted her. Nothing changed. This time I let silence do its work. My father cleared his throat. "We made assumptions." I looked at him. "You made choices." He flinched. My mother pressed a tissue to her nose. "We thought Caleb needed stability." "So did I." She shut her eyes. "I know." "No," I said softly. "You know now. There's a difference." My father nodded once slowly. Mr. Albright wrote something down. The meeting lasted 2 hours. For the first time, my parents had to look at numbers without emotion fogging the glass. Total mortgage shortages I had covered. Tax arrears. Insurance. Repairs. Medical support. Utilities. Groceries. The amount was larger than even I had allowed myself to feel. My mother stared at the total like it was a diagnosis. My father whispered, "Jesus." I almost said, "No, Leah." But I did not. Not every sharp truth needs to be thrown. Some can sit quietly and still cut. My mother looked up. "Why didn't you tell us it was this much?" I laughed once. I could not help it. It was not a happy sound. "I did. You cried. Dad got ashamed. Caleb called me bitter." Then another bill came, and everyone moved on. She covered her face. My father said, "That's fair." It was the first time he had ever said that to me in a conversation about Caleb. Fair. A small word. A late word. But real. We discussed the house. Keeping it was impossible. That became clear quickly. My parents could not afford it without me. Caleb could not take it. I would not keep paying for it. The agreement gave me leverage. But more than that, the truth gave me permission. The house would be sold. My mother wept when I said it. Not pretty tears. Grief tears. The kind that come from losing not just a place, but the version of yourself you built inside it. "My hydrangeas," she whispered. For a second, I saw her not as my mother, not as the woman who had failed me, but as a person who had spent years decorating denial, because reality was too frightening to face. I felt compassion. Then I let it be compassion, not surrender. "You can plant hydrangeas somewhere you can afford," I said. She looked at me wounded. Then slowly, strangely, she nodded. The house sold in July. A young couple bought it. They had a toddler, a baby on the way, and no idea how many ghosts were leaving with the furniture. The sale paid off the mortgage, cleared the remaining debts, reimbursed part of what my parents owed me, and left them enough to move into a small condo 15 minutes away. My mother hated the condo. At first, she hated the beige carpet. She hated the lack of a porch. She hated that the kitchen window faced a parking lot instead of hydrangeas. But the first month there, every bill was paid on time. My father said quietly, almost embarrassed, "It's easier to breathe here." My mother pretended not to hear him. I heard. Caleb left Franklin before the house closed. No goodbye. No apology. He posted a black and white photo of a highway with the caption, "Sometimes growth means leaving people who misunderstand your calling." 3 women commented, praying hands. One man commented, "Stay strong, brother." I blocked him, not out of anger, out of hygiene. Harper returned the wedding gifts. Her mother handled it with terrifying efficiency. Bennett Caldwell withdrew from Monroe and Stone before it officially existed. 6 months later, I heard Harper had taken a position in Atlanta, managing charitable partnerships for her family company. She sent me a Christmas card. No long letter, just one handwritten sentence. "Thank you for opening the folder before I opened the wrong life." I kept it in my desk drawer, not as proof, as a reminder. Truth can arrive late and still save someone. As for me, I went back to school. Not immediately. I wish I could say I marched from the rehearsal dinner straight into my destiny, but real life is less cinematic. First, I slept. For about 2 months, I slept like my body had been waiting years for permission. I went to work. I came home. I ate cereal for dinner. I ignored calls when I did not have the energy to answer. I learned that rest can feel like guilt when exhaustion has been your identity. Then in August, I enrolled in classes. 2 at first. Anatomy and developmental psychology. I was older than most students. I had better highlighters. I also had a nervous system that flinched every time my mother called during study hours. Boundaries were not a single door I closed. They were muscles I had never used. At first, I over-explained. "I can't come over Saturday because I have a lab quiz Monday, and I really need to review chapters 4 through 6, and I've been tired from work." And my father interrupted once and said, "Okay, honey, just okay. No guilt, no sigh, no emergency." I cried after that call. Not because he had done something extraordinary, because he had done something normal and normal felt like mercy. My relationship with my parents did not become beautiful. This is not that kind of story. We did not sit around a holiday table holding hands while Caleb returned humbled and everyone admitted every wrong. Some people never give you the apology your pain deserves. Some families improve only after consequences remove the option of continuing as before. My mother still defended Caleb sometimes, not directly, more like grief leaking sideways. He's having a hard time, she would say. And I would answer, I hope he gets help. Then I would change the subject. At first she looked hurt. Eventually she stopped offering me his consequences like dishes to wash. My father changed more quietly. He started asking before assuming, do you have time to help me with this form? Sometimes I did. Sometimes I did not. When I said no, he said okay. Progress does not always look like speeches. Sometimes it looks like a proud man learning to call the insurance company himself. One Sunday, almost a year after the rehearsal dinner, my mother invited me to lunch at their condo. I almost said no because Sundays in my family still carried the old smell of obligation. But I went. She made chicken salad, too much of it, because some habits survive every house. After lunch, she brought out a shoebox. Inside were old photos. Caleb in baseball uniforms. Me in school plays. The blue-gray house covered in Christmas lights. My mother picked up one photo of me at 17 standing beside the porch swing with my arms crossed and a tired smile. You were so young, she said. I looked at the picture. I remembered that day. I had worked a morning shift, cleaned the kitchen before guests arrived, and missed a study group because Caleb had needed the car. Yes, I said. My mother touched the edge of the photo. I think I let you become older than you were because it helped me feel safer. I looked at her. She was not crying. That made the sentence stronger. I think so too, I said. Her mouth trembled. I'm sorry. There it was. Small. Late. Imperfect. But not wrapped in excuses. I did not forgive everything in that moment. Life is not a movie, and daughters are not vending machines where one apology buys absolution. But something in me unclenched. Thank you, I said. That was all I could give. That was enough for that day. I graduated from nursing school at 37. My parents came. My father wore the same suit from the rehearsal dinner, altered because he had lost weight. My mother brought flowers, not hydrangeas, sunflowers, bright, almost embarrassingly cheerful. When my name was called, I walked across the stage and heard my mother cry out, "That's my daughter." For a second, the old pain rose. Where was that voice when I was 18? Where was that pride when I was 26? Where was that celebration when I paid the taxes, fixed the roof, saved the house, and kept everyone breathing? Then I let the questions pass through me. Not because they did not matter, because they no longer owned the whole room. After the ceremony, my father hugged me carefully. "I'm proud of you," he said. I believed him. I also knew I had survived without hearing it when I needed it most. Both things were true. That is the hardest part of healing. It does not erase the old truth. It simply makes space for a new one beside it. Caleb did not come. He sent no message. Years earlier, that would have ruined the day. This time I barely noticed until my mother mentioned it. "He wanted to," she said. I gave her a look. She stopped. Then quietly she said, "You're right. I don't know that." It was such a small correction. But small corrections can be holy in families built on big lies. After graduation, I took a job as a patient advocate at the same hospital where I had worked in billing. My job was to help patients understand costs, options, assistance programs, and the terrifying language of healthcare. I was good at it, not because I was naturally noble, because I knew what it felt like to be trapped under numbers no one wanted to explain. I knew how shame sounded on the phone. I knew when people were pretending to understand because they were too embarrassed to ask again. I knew how to say, "Let's go through this together," without making it feel like charity. My life became smaller in some ways after the house sold. No big family home, no dramatic porch, no legacy posts, no Sunday performances under hydrangeas. But it became mine. I rented a better apartment, then bought a small townhouse with a narrow kitchen, good light, and a front step wide enough for 2 pots of basil. No one else's name was on it. No one else's emergency lived inside my walls. The first night there, I sat on the floor with takeout noodles surrounded by boxes and listened to the silence. Not lonely silence, safe silence. There is a difference. Sometimes people ask whether I regret opening the Navy folder at the rehearsal dinner. They expect me to say yes. They want me to say I should have handled it privately. But privacy had been the room where the lies grew. Privacy was where my mother cried until I apologized. Privacy was where my father stayed silent. Privacy was where Caleb practiced becoming the hero of work he never did. Privacy had protected everyone except the person telling the truth. So no, I do not regret it. I regret waiting until the lie had a guest list. I regret every year I believed being needed was the same as being loved. I regret calling my own dreams selfish because my family's emergencies had better timing. But I do not regret the folder. That folder did not destroy my family. It documented what silence had already damaged. My brother called me the lesson because he thought my life was small. He thought responsibility was fear because he had only ever seen other people carry the cost of his courage. He thought I was bitter because I remembered what he benefited from forgetting. But he was right about one thing. I was the lesson, just not his version. I was the lesson in what happens when the quiet daughter keeps receipts. I was the lesson in what happens when a family confuses sacrifice with consent. I was the lesson in what happens when the person everyone depends on finally stops confusing duty with disappearance. And if you have ever been that person, you know exactly what I mean. The one who pays, the one who fixes, the one who remembers, the one who stays calm so everyone else can fall apart. The one they call dramatic the first time you say no. I hope you learn sooner than I did. I hope you do not wait for a rehearsal dinner, a public insult, or a folder full of proof. But if that is what it takes, then bring the folder. Open it. Tell the truth clearly. And when they act shocked that your silence had an ending, let them be shocked. You were not born to be the lesson in someone else's speech. You were born to have a life of your own. And walking away from people who only value what you carry is not betrayal. It is self-respect.